Bilbo is so relatable because at every turn, he's like, if y'all don't let me have something to eat right now, I swear. Hey, what's up you guys? It's Avery and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who've never been here before, welcome. Glad you made it. If you've been watching my channel for a while and you saw the title and the thumbnail of this video, you might have broken out into a cold sweat. What's going on? Avery is voluntarily reading a fantasy book? Yes. So, I have not been a huge fan of fantasy on this channel. It's actually, okay, it's not even that I don't like fantasy, it's that it's just not what I'm drawn to. Like, I very rarely am like, I want to read a fantasy book. It's just not usually what I'm into, but I do like, I mean, pretty much most of the fantasy books that I've read, I have enjoyed. So, I'm not a hater, okay? I'm just not a patron. But the other day, I was browsing my brother's bookshelf, and he and my entire family are big Lord of the Rings fans. And so I just pulled off The Hobbit and said, you know what? Let's give it a go. In my head, for some reason, I thought that all of the Lord of the Rings books were like this thick. For some reason, I thought they were all like 1,000 pages, and this one is like 300. My brother read all of the Lord of the Rings books when he was like 12. So I figure if my 12-year-old brother can do it, I can do it. Another thing that I didn't know, maybe I'm just dumb, I didn't know that The Hobbit came out first. I thought that the Lord of the Rings trilogy came out first and then The Hobbit was released later as a prequel. But no, The Hobbit was the first one to come out. It doesn't really affect my reading, but it's, you know, interesting to know. I'm also a big fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. Because my family growing up were such big fans, I was kind of like a fan because I had to be, but I also like really enjoy them. I mean, Legolas, I know I've seen all 3 of the Hobbits. I could not tell you what happens at the end of the last movie, so the ending of this book will be a bit of a surprise, which is exciting. I know the general storyline, but I don't know everything that happens. So I'm going to be doing a reading vlog. I think I'm gonna have a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled review. So just check the timestamps if you haven't read this book and don't want to be spoiled. But I feel like a lot of people have read The Lord of the Rings, especially fantasy fiends. You may have noticed I have avoided saying the author's name because I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid to do that. I think it's technically pronounced Tolkien, right? But everyone I know and my whole life I've always just heard Tolkien. So I don't know amongst fans like what is acceptable. If it's acceptable to just say Tolkien because that's what a lot of people say, or if I need to be like politically correct and say Tolkien. So I'm gonna say neither. I feel like The Lord of the Rings has just always been very daunting, and I've just heard that it's very like descriptive and there'll be pages and pages of just description, and that's like not what I like to read. If I'm reading like chunks and chunks of like description of like a countryside, I'm gonna be skimming. But I'm gonna do my best to read it fully. Hopefully it won't be that bad. Like I said, it's not that long, and from like just looking through it, it seems like there's a lot of dialogue and stuff that's happening, so I'm not super worried. Without further ado, let's jump into the reading vlog. So I'm only a few pages in, and already Bilbo is so relatable. He says, "Sorry, I don't want any adventures, thank you. Not today. Good morning, but please come to tea anytime you like. Why not tomorrow? Come tomorrow. Goodbye." He's like, I think I would rather stay home and hang than go on an adventure. Which is like relatable and not relatable at the same time. You know what I mean? But like, I get it. Okay, I'm not going to be doing chapter by chapter updates, but I did read the first chapter and really liked it so far. Like, I'm actually kind of surprised how much I'm enjoying it. Not surprised, but like, I don't know, maybe a little surprised. First of all, it's like funny. I'm like chuckling all the time. Gandalf's hilarious, Bilbo's hilarious, the dwarves are hilarious. And so I'm just really enjoying that part of it. But then also, like, I'm really feeling myself, like, drawn in to the world. To this, like, magical world. Which isn't something I'm usually, like, drawn in by. I don't know why. Love to see that. So as you just saw, I just had a bagel. It was great. And now I'm going to run into a Goodwill. I'm going to look for some other things, but I'm gonna look at the books and take you along with me, see if I find anything. I usually find some stuff at Goodwill's. They usually have good books there, so I am excited to go do that. I'm just looking for one of these, I'll be honest. This could also be of use. Okay, there's nothing there. I must have jinxed myself. Oh well. So Bilbo is crawling around on the floor in the dark, in the tunnels where the goblins are, and he's just crawling along and he feels a little ring. And he's like, I'm gonna pick that up, put it in my pocket. I'm like, put it back! Put it back. But he didn't listen to me. He probably can't hear me. Causing trouble for years to come. Frodo's rolling in his grave right now. I mean, Frodo's not dead, but Frodo's rolling in the womb right now. So I want to give an update. I am like 2/3 of the way through The Hobbit. My version has 300 pages and I like just passed page 200. And I'm enjoying it so far. They are on their way to the mountain, the final part of the journey to get their crap back. And yeah, I'm excited for it to wrap up. I'm like ready. They've gone through so many things and like it's been such a long journey and like reading about so many different experiences that I'm like ready to see how it plays out in the end. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. And that's all I got right now. Okay, you guys, I have finished. Oh, it's right here. The Hobbit. So I'm gonna start off by doing a bit of a spoiler-free review on my overall thoughts of the book. So if you haven't read it before, then you can watch this and get my thoughts on it and then decide for yourself if you want to pick it up or not. So first let's start with the spoiler-free review. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it more than I guess I maybe assumed I would. I think I went into reading this with certain like expectations because of seeing the movies and what I've just heard about the books in the past. For example, I've just heard that the Lord of the Rings are super like description heavy, which is not like what I love to read, but this was not that bad. There were definitely some moments where there'd be a few like long paragraphs describing something that I would kind of not pay the closest attention to, especially when it came to like places. He'd be talking about like how to get from one place to another place. That part like didn't matter to me that much. Overall, I would say there weren't any like ridiculous descriptions that just made it hard to read, and it was like really easy to follow, which I thought was really nice. Also, just in general, the book was a lot more light feeling than what I expected, because pretty much all of the Lord of the Rings movies are very like somber, and there's moments, you know, that are fun and light, but for the most part the movies are very kind of like ominous and there's evil going on and blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of what I was expecting out of this book, but this book is actually, it was like really fun, and all of the characters were like really fun and interesting. Bilbo was really funny. He was definitely like my favorite character out of all of them. I thought that he was great. I thought he was super relatable. Gandalf was also really just like funny and had, you know, such a like positive outlook on things. They literally like almost died and he's like, glad we didn't die. Let's keep it moving. And the dwarves were funny. Similarly, like the dwarves, especially in the movie, Thorin is like more like moody, you know? He's more like, we have to get to the mountain and kill the dragon, like, oh my gosh. And in the book, he's just kind of like chilling. He's like one of the dwarves. And it's not as serious feeling as it was in the movies, even though they are serious about what they're doing. But so I liked that aspect of it, is that it just felt very lighthearted, and it felt like I was reading like a fairy tale, or it kind of has the vibes of stories from the Middle Ages about like going on a quest and, you know, getting through all these hurdles to get to the final, you know, battle or the final thing that you have to do. And so it kind of reminded me of the Epic of Gilgamesh or Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, like that kind of deal, which I liked. It was like just fun to read about. It's a lot of Tolkien just like telling you what happens. It's like telling you, oh, this happened, but blah, 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 and on to the next thing. So it was kind of interesting reading a story like that, because I haven't really read any that are set up that way or like have that feeling, but it was interesting and I liked it. So overall, I would say that I enjoyed reading The Hobbit and it was a good fantasy experience. It's not incredibly long like some other fantasy books are, which can be kind of daunting to read. And like I said, I feel like these books have this stigma of being difficult to read or long or like really boring in parts, and this book wasn't like that. There were maybe a few parts where I wasn't like incredibly interested, but for the most part, it kept up a pretty good pace, and then they were kind of always moving on to something. And so I really liked it. I thought Bilbo was such a funny, good main character because he is like relatable. You're reading about him being like thrown into all these insane situations and he's just reacting the way like a normal person would. So it's great like reading about him going along and eventually getting braver and all of those things, but also at the end of the day, he's still a normal guy. Overall, just the overall vibe of the book was like very magical and very fun. Felt like I was in a fairy tale. Like I said, which I don't think is always portrayed in the movies. I feel like the movies do have like very like magical moments and lighthearted moments, but overall the movies are very somber, and so I appreciated this. This felt more light and more fun. And I was talking to my brother and about this, and he said that yeah, this one is definitely more lighthearted because there's not like crazy evil stuff happening like with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The only real problems they have in this are like the goblins and the dragon. But he did tell me that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is a little more But that is my spoiler-free review. Overall, I thought it was great, and I thought it was like a fun, magical story. Okay, on to a section with some spoilers. I don't have any major spoilers. I'm just going to talk about like a few specific things in the book. So kind of going on with what I was talking about the book being more like lighthearted and doesn't really get super like depressing or evil until the next series. That is one thing that I was a little surprised about, is that the ring like didn't have any negative effects on Bilbo. It wasn't spoken about yet, but we obviously know what the ring does to people because we meet Gollum in that book, and if you have any prior knowledge, then you know. So I don't know if maybe Tolkien hadn't decided to go that direction with it, and maybe when he was writing The Hobbit, it was just like a magical ring, and then he decided about this like plot of having the ring turn people crazy. But I mean, actually, I think he probably did plan it out because he had Gollum with the ring, and I feel like he knew that that's what happened to him. But anyway, so that was a little surprising, is that like in the book it's not even like really alluded to that the ring was going to cause problems. And at the end of the book, Bilbo's like, oh, he just keeps the ring in his house and he uses it sometimes when he doesn't want to have to see people, and that's kind of all that's said about it. Maybe it is because he doesn't have any use for it after his adventure that it doesn't turn him crazy. But yeah, that was interesting, and I guess if I do eventually read the other books, maybe it'll explain that a little bit better. Something else which was kind of interesting about Tolkien's writing style is that he would like allude to something bad happening, but then right after he'd be like, oh, but it all turns out okay. So he would kind of like tell you in advance that the story is going to have a happy conclusion, and that makes me wonder if that's because he, like I said, was following the style of these like old like English tales, because I know that like Tolkien studied Old English and Middle English, and that was like his deal, like linguistics. And so like I said, I think a lot of the stories like that, which involve these heroes going on quests, kind of like you assume that the hero's not going to die at the end. And so it was funny, like he would be explaining that, oh, it looks like everybody's in the throes, but then he would say, but as you'll see soon, the Hobbit gets them out of like trouble, you know, something like that. It's just kind of a little like constant foreshadowing of what's to happen, and I've never read any stories which do that, which is kind of like interesting as well. I made this note when I was probably 2/3 of the way, maybe a little more than that, but it's like around the time they get to the mountain, and I said, I'm not gonna say the dwarves are useless, but are they? The dwarves are low-key useless. The first half of the journey when Gandalf is with them, Gandalf pretty much just like gets them out of sticky situations the whole time. And then near the end of the book, they literally just come to rely on Bilbo for everything. It was making me laugh because when they got to the mountain it's their mountain, right? It's like the mountain that they're trying to reclaim, that belonged to their ancestors, the whole shebang. And they get to the mountain, they get to the door, and the dwarves are like, okay, Bilbo, like, go in, go scope it out for us. And I do understand, like, he does have the ring, so obviously that, you know, allows him to be able to sneak around for them. But at the same time, they just rely on him for so much, and I just thought it was so funny. I'm like, do y'all have any plans? They're literally like, we're gonna go get our mountain back, but we have no idea how we're gonna do it, and also the fact that we, like, have to kill a dragon, like, we're just kind of not really gonna think about that until that happens. And then he comes back out, and they're all like, okay, Bilbo, like, what we gonna do? So I just thought it was funny that Thorin is, like, their leader, but he very rarely offered solutions, offered plans of action. So pretty much up until the very end, I was, like, very useless. Like, these dwarves have done nothing, and it was just kind of making me giggle a little bit. Bilbo's like, oh my gosh, like, do I have to do everything around here? But then at the end, during the battle, we see that the dwarves, you know, really come in and end up helping them not lose. So they end up being useful, and I know there were parts throughout the book that, like, they did help, so don't, like, come for me in the comments and be like, oh, well, they saved him from the trolls and blah 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 blah. I know they did do things, but I just thought it was funny how, like, when it came to their quest, they, like, low-key were relying on somebody else to figure out how to do everything. And then Thorin was kind of pissing me off at the end, how he was being, like, super greedy, but I was still sad when he died, and yeah, that was sad. And also with Fili and Kili, I was really sad that they died too. That, like, made me upset. Overall, I thought it ended well, and I thought it turned out well. And then finally, I just want to talk about Bilbo a little more. I really just thought, like, his character development was really awesome, and I thought that it was great how, like, he was super relatable. Even though he does eventually, like, get more courageous and brave, he's still, at the end of the day, he's, like, just a normal guy. Bilbo is so relatable because at every turn, he's like, if y'all don't let me have something to eat right now, I swear. And that's what I like to see of my protagonists. A man of the people. I also thought it was funny how the entire time he's like, I just want to be back in my hobbit hole. I want to be chilling. I don't want to be doing this. But even though he has those thoughts, he still ends up doing what has to be done, and he's courageous. And so I thought that Bilbo's character was really cool, and I thought that he was really funny. He was just like, I can't with y'all half the time. Okay, so those are my thoughts on The Hobbit. I really enjoyed reading this. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I would say I definitely enjoyed the beginning and the end the most. Parts in the middle maybe got a little slow for me, but were still interesting. And so I thought it was good. It made me feel like I was, you know, living in Middle Earth. A little magical, you know what I mean? And now I want to watch the movies. So I will probably do that sometime soon. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching me experience reading Tolkien for the first time. I know that he's very beloved, so don't come for me in the comments if I said something that you don't agree with. But also let me know, because I'd like to hear your opinions. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps out my channel. Also, comment down below if you've read any of Tolkien's books and what your thoughts are, what you thought of The Hobbit compared to the Lord of the Rings series, and any comments you have. I would love to hear them. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me soon, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.